See some bell is ringing from somewhere. You can mute yourself, right? If that kind of sound is coming from somewhere nearby, you can mute yourself. Alright. I can see somebody's somewhere child's voice as well. Well, okay. So yesterday we were doing our Ajna Patra. That is one of the important texts gives information about the Maratha administration, right? And in this text we have covered most of the chapters. Can you recollect how many chapters are there in this text in this Ajna Patra? Do you remember?
Eight
Anybody?
chapter.
Huh? It is
Eight
having nine chapters. All right.
chapter. Nine.
And what are the things they tell us? What are the things that we have done so far? What are the information this Ajna Patra, the chapters in this Ajna Patra gives us? Can you recollect quickly?
About Rajaram Amatya.
Ramchandra Panta Amatya. His name was uh, Ramchandra Panta
Yeah.
Amatya. And what is the title that he is known by? Any another name? Any another name that he is known by? Hukumat Pana. All right. Well,
Pan.
and what are the information that this text gives us?
Uh,
What are the
what-
information? Anybody quickly recollect? No. Okay. We'll have a quick relook. Here. Well, you see, this is what we have done chapter wise. This is a text which is having nine chapters, and the first two chapter is a kind of introduction, and the third chapter is it gives about the information about the general principle of the state policy and organization, how the king should behave, he should not joke and all that. And then fourth gives us information about the administrative and minister policy. The fifth chapter gives information about the commercial policy, how the merchants should be treated, and it also talks about the merchants from abroad, that is European merchants. Then the sixth chapter talks about policy towards Wakanda. The people who are having traditional right, they should be kept under check because they generally have a tendency to create trouble and get into fighting with each other. And then this is hereditary writties and inam to the extent what's possible it is not to be given, but whatever is going on is as per tradition hereditary writties and inam, they should not be confiscated. This is what we have done yesterday, and we were talking about the forts when I had some problem with my network, and then we just called it off yesterday. So we will talk about forts now. So Hukumat Khana Ramchandra Panta Amartya says that fort is like a key to the area. It is with the fort that the king can keep control over the surrounding area, because if there is no fort available, the region can be easily conquered by the coming enemy. It is with the help of the fort that the soldier can protect themselves and sally forth from the fort and attack the invading enemy. At the same time, food with adequate ration and with a very few people can fight against the large invading army for a considerable period. We will be seeing the importance of food. In fact, these forts and the hilly region had played a very important role in the rise of the Marathas and the way Shivaji and the Marathas have protected their kingdom. So these forts are very important, and uh, Ramchandra Panta Amartya in his Ajna Patra says that Watandar, if they are made officers on the fort, if they are made Kiledar, in charge, or put on any other important post, they should be put away. They should be kept away from their own watan, their own territory from where they had been traditionally collecting taxes. Yeah, because if they are having their watan very close to the fort, fort is also under their control. Surrounding area is also under their control, so they are likely to become independent, behave like an independent ruler, not to listen to the king, and very quickly join the invading army, and that may create a trouble. At the same time, if the fort in which the officer is placed and his watan is nearby, he will also have a tendency to go very frequently to his watan, go very frequently to his home and hand over a temporary charge to fort. So he will not be there present on the fort for a very long period, and that may also lead to the loosening of the administration on the fort. Similarly, he gives information about what care should be taken for the when we construct fort. He said that there should be, adequate arrangement for water. If the water sources of water should be there, there should be spring from where water is constantly coming, and if there is no adequate spring available, uh, a lake is to be digged up in on the fort and the rainwater to be stored. Similarly, he talks about the king should make at least two tanks. One tank should be always kept reserved, so that in case of long drawn siege, if the invading army they lay a siege to the fort, the people on the fort can survive with the help of that water, because without water life cannot exist. He also says that the garrison should never be allowed to remain inactive. They should be always put to some work. The good people, good carpenter, good artisan, they should be invited to fort, paid adequate money, and they should be put to the work. The king should frequently inspect the fort, and whenever the king is coming to inspect the fort, the killedar, the in charge of the fort, should make adequate arrangement, clean the fort, clean the area, where the king is going to stay, decorate the area, and welcome the king. All these things keep the garrison, the people staying on the fort active. Similarly, he gives information about the gunpowder. The gunpowder was used. Everybody knows what is gunpowder. Hello.
Yes, sir.
हाँ, gunpowder is, in Hindi जिसको बारूद बोला जाता है. So he says
Yes.
that gunpowder should be always kept dry. The precaution should be taken that it should never become wet. It should not get spoiled, because if that becomes spoiled, you lose your firepower. You cannot shoot at the incoming army, and that will considerably weaken you strategically. That will considerably weaken your fighting strength. Similarly, while constructing the fort, he also gives an instruction that it has to be built at a very high hill, highest hill in the region if possible, and near to that fort, where near to that hill where you are building your fort, there should not be a very high hill very close by. Tell me, what is the reason if you are having a fort on the high hill and if there is a very high hill nearby? What is likely to happen?
It can be
The
watched.
enemies might capture that,
No,
the
it
other.
for surveillance. They can keep surveillance from there.
They can keep the surveillance, they can capture. Yeah, that's right. And one very important thing, one very fatal thing that is likely to happen to our fort is that if enemy is having cannon, and it's very difficult for a cannon to shoot from the ground level to the higher level, but if the cannon is placed at the similar level,
Uh,
Yes.
then it becomes easier, it becomes very deadly attack. So if the enemy want to conquer our fort, not able to do it, what he can do is he will put some effort and take his cannon to the surrounding hill, and if the hill is almost of the same height, he can fire cannonballs from that hill, and that may prove that may create a colossal damage, that may damage our fort to the considerable extent. And he says that there should not be very high hill nearby, and he says that even if the high hill is there nearby, and we find that this place is suitable to construct the fort, that hill, nearby hill, to be destroyed. We will be talking about the siege of Purandar, where Jai Singh and Diler Khan, two Mughal noble, attacked Chhatrapati Shivaji's kingdom, Maratha kingdom. And when they were conquering Purandar, what Diler Khan has done is, as Purandar was one of the inaccessible, one of the very difficult fort to conquer, he had followed the same strategy. He took his cannon to the hill nearby, and from there, then it was difficult. It was easy for him to control Purandar. He could fire his cannon, and that finally, became one of the important factor that has gone in the favor of the Mughal finally. Well, so there should not be no hill nearby. The officers should be frequently transferred. A person, high-ranking officer, staying on the one fort for a very long period is dangerous because he may develop a interest and start behaving like an independent king. Then next, very almost very cruel thing or very strict thing that Chhatrapati Shivaji has ordered, as mentioned in Ajna Patra, is that if Killedar joins hands with enemy, if the fort of the region has gone from your hand, the region has gone from your hand. It's a here, which was very surprising to me. Well, Laltanpuri, please mute yourself. I can hear somebody is talking to you. So, was it Laltanpuri or somebody else?
Yes.
Ah,
Sorry, sir.
okay, no problem. Okay. If somebody is talking to you, if you are hearing certain disturbance, you can mute yourself. All right. Okay, fine, no problem. Let us go. Otherwise, you can keep yourself and mute that. Okay. Now this is a very surprising thing which I read in this text, and it's very clearly says that if Kiledar, the in charge of the fort, join hands with enemy, his children and wife should be enslaved. His home to be attacked, and the Kiledar who is staying away from his watan, and in his watan he may be having his family. They should be enslaved. So about fort protection, Chhatrapati Shivaji and the Ajna Patra is very, 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 very strict. So this is slide. So this is about food. And next ninth chapter, that is the last chapter, it talks about the naval policy. It is very interesting that among the Indian ruler, Chhatrapati Shivaji is among the pioneer in the medieval India at least, who had taken a lot of interest in building their navy. Earlier, before that, Chol king have definitely done it. You will be studying this in your paper state in ancient and medieval India. Rajendra Chola and Rajaraja Chola, they had built very strong navy and they have conquered a very extensive region of Sri Lanka and the island in the Indian Ocean. But in the medieval period, Vijayanagara could not build very strong navy. They had no access to sea as such, and then Mughal also could not build very strong navy. That became one of the factor in the downfall of the Mughal. But Chhatrapati Shivaji had put his attention to navy because the Portuguese and the Britishers, they could rule over the sea and control the trade because they had a very strong navy. So here in Ajna Patra we get information and instruction about how the ships are to be constructed. There are instruction about the size. Like it says that ships should not be very big. It should be of middle size, and the importance of the small boats, how they can be equipped, the middle size ship, how they can be equipped, how they can be used for attack. Like in the naval warfare, in Adhyapatra Ramchandra Panchamat, it says that even if you in the war on the sea, in the war between the ships of the enemy and your own ships, even if the enemy is willing to surrender, don't go very close very quickly because that could be a trap. Enemy may pretend to be surrendering and suddenly you go.
Ambush.
It is quite possible that there might be ambush. Yeah, very right word. It could be an ambush, and you will be destroyed because the warfare on the sea could be very deadly if your ship is badly damaged. The sea itself will swallow you. So that you need to be very, very, very careful. There should be. He talks about the organization of the navy. Who are the people should be employed on the navy? What are the policy to be followed towards the merchant ship? They need to be protected, but they need to be taxed as well. When you provide place to the merchant ship in your region, in your area, they should pay you taxes. Then during the rainy season when the sea is bit troublesome, the ships generally don't sail out. They come on the shore and take shelter in the harbor. So here in this chapter, ninth chapter, Chhatrapati Shivaji is very careful. He gives very clear instruction that ships are not to be sheltered at one place every year. Every year the rainy season will come and the ship has to come to the shore and take shelter. He says that every year the ship should take shelter at different places. Now, can you guess what could be the reason? Why the ships should take shelter at different places?
Maybe for safety purpose.
Safety purpose. Anything else?
So it might be very costly to come again back to the place where it was shelter earlier.
Well, there are basically two important things. First is safety reasons. See, if the ship is coming to the same harbor every year, enemy will know about your movement, and it is quite
Yes.
possible that the enemy may in advance plan the attack, and when your ship goes, there is a possibility of conflict. First thing. So if you are changing your places very frequently, enemy will not be able to do a very long term planning to ambush your ship or to destroy your ship. First thing. Second thing is that Chhatrapati Shivaji says or Ajnapatra says, which are believed to be the instruction of Shivaji, that whenever the large number of soldiers are stationed at one particular place, they are likely to create trouble for the civilian population, nearby population. They may, take the firewood from their agriculture land. Are you understanding this?
Yes,
Sir, yeah.
sir.
Because during those days the food was cooked by using firewood, so they may take firewood by taking by cutting the trees or by snatching the trees, or they may take milk, and soldiers, they stay for a very long period away from their family, and sometimes wherever there is a camp, soldier camp, and they are not kept under strict watch, they may create some trouble for the women. They may make it is unsafe for the women to go out. So to avoid all these, Chhatrapati Shivaji has instructed that the same area should not be troubled time and again. And in case of not to give any trouble to farmers, Chhatrapati Shivaji has given a very clear instruction. He says that you should never cut the tree of the farmer, because trees are planted and brought up like their own child by
Child.
by the farmers, and if you cut it, that will create a lot of discontentment, lot of unhappiness among the farmer, and it is quite possible that if trouble is too much, a farmer may just leave that area. There will not be no agriculture, and if there is no population, if there is no citizen, what is the use of having a kingdom? That is how Chhatrapati Shivaji has given a lot of instruction. Similarly, in case of where the camp is to be, where this army armor stays during the rainy season, Chhatrapati Shivaji was a very minute observer. What are the mistakes can be done in the camp? And I'll give you one example. You can understand that how minute observer he was. According to, of course, according to Agnapatra, he says that whenever the soldiers are going to sleep in the night, don't keep the lamp burning, because if you keep the lamp burning, it is quite possible that in the night a mouse may come. He may carry that wick of the wick it will have some oil into it, and it is burning. And if the mouse carries burning wick to the go down where the food and fodder is kept, it's quite possible that may lead into the fire accident. And if the food and fodder is burned, our soldiers and our animal, our cattle will not get any food, and we will be defeated. Are you understanding this? So he was a very minute observer of the human nature, and that is what Ajnapatra tells us. So this is all about the ninth chapter, which talks up in detail about the naval policy. Unfortunately, later on during Peshwa's period, Peshwas have developed certain differences with the in charge of the Maratha Navy, that is Angre, and then they fought the war, and the Maratha Navy itself was destroyed by Peshwas themselves, by another Maratha ruler. So that is a later on story, but Chhatrapati Shivaji nevertheless gave a lot of importance to it. So, lastly, we have if we have to summarize this text, we can say that there are certain exaggeration. For example, there are certain things which seems to be written, like Raja Ram's expedition to North. Is it in this text? Well, anyway, there are certain exaggeration, no doubt, but nevertheless, it is considered as a very important source about the if you want to understand the Maratha administrative policies and administrative organization. So here, our discussion about this text Ajnapatra is over. Do you have any doubt so far? Tell me.
No, sir.
Fine. Well, so many times you get question on this, like and make an analysis of Adhyapatra as an important source of history. So I read so forth. So unlike there are certain disagreement with people are having certain disagreement with the Adhyapatra is written by Ramchandra Ramanuja. There are certain people who do say that no, it is written by Ramchandra Ramanuja. Indeed. Well, so Ajnapatra is over here. Shall we go to the next topic?
Yes, sir. Sir, which book should we refer for this paper?
Yeah, see, I have so far just a minute. I'll tell you this. Are you able to see this PPT, next PPT that I have started?
Yes, work of Shahaji, Rise of Shivaji.
Rise of Marathas. You can see this first. Can you read it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in this, just with coming back to your question, there are certain books in English which I have asked, that is, there is a book by Jadra Sarad. Well, I will do one thing. In my next class, I will give you the list of the book in English. All right?
Okay, sir.
So, because most of this lesson I have prepared by reading Marathi book. This is Marathansa Ityas Kulkarni Khare. It is a 3-volume book, and this is a very good book in Marathi. But I'll let you know about the English books.
Okay.
Well, and now in the sources of Maratha history, next topic is Shakavali. But my lesson on Shakavali is not prepared. I have one Shakavali, but I was waiting for that book, and it came little. It took some time by post to come, and then I got busy with my own work. But I have certain lessons prepared from the next topic, that is Rise of Marathas. All right.
Yes.
So we will start with that, and this rise of Marathas I have on the Google Classroom 2-3 days back. Yesterday, I think yesterday only. Well, could you go through? Could you take a look at least? What are the causes behind the rise of the Marathas?
No, sir, did not see this.
Well, okay. Anybody else? Anybody? Well, okay. Now, in this 17th century, Marathas have become an important political force. And they have dominated almost 18th century. They had a very excessive area starting from all the way to south to all the way up to, Attock, that is the region between present-day Pakistan and Afghanistan. Multan and Peshawar was also conquered by the Marathas. So Maharashtra is far away from this region. So what are the reason that the Marathas have become such a strong military force that they could take their army, fight for the protection of the Mughal emperor at Panipat, which is also very far away from Maharashtra, and there was a time when the Subedar of Multan and Peshawar used to be the Maratha. Behind any historical event, there is always certain reason. Nothing just happens out of blue. And in causation, we have learned that the good history making is try to understand the causes. So let us try to understand the causes. Well, anyway, Can you guess, just wild guess, even if you are not read it, you can guess it. What could be the reason behind the rise of the Marathas as an important political force? Tell me.
So the Mughal Empire is probably one of the cause,
Uh-huh,
and the exploitation by the Mughal Empire may be one of the cause.
uh-huh. Well, anything else? Anything else?
Also, the weakening of the central control.
Weakening of the central control. That is, well, anything else? Well, it was a result of a lot many intricate and intermingling forces. So let us start. The causes can be categorized into the different category like geographical reason, political reason, social reason, religious reason. Now let us start guessing about one by one. About political, you guess certain thing like weakening of the central power and invasion of the so on and so forth. What could be the geographical reason that had contributed to the rise of the Marathas? Can you guess?
The location of the Deccan, like the Deccan region is not a plain region, it's mountainous. So it's easy for a group of people to become powerful in the region if they are well acquainted with the geography of the region.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anything
So
else?
like during that period also the trade was also prominent. So the probably the sea or the coastal line may be the reason.
Well, okay. Okay. Anything else? Do you remember in our last class, which we have just finished now? I told you about importance of ports.
Yes.
So that geographical reason is such that if you construct fort on some inaccessible hills, which is difficult to conquer, which is difficult to take huge army up to that fort, with a small number of people, you can fight a very long run war. You can make a very effective use of the hilly terrain. So let us go into the detail. The first thing is that the character of a person is shaped in which he is being brought up. The land,
Yes.
the Western Maharashtra, which is a part of the Western Ghat and Sahyadri, that is a mountainous region. It doesn't have a lot of fertile soil. Now, if a person is brought up in that area or if the population is living in that area for generation to generation, somehow they become, they develop a kind of tenacity. They become a very hard-working person because for survival, they have to work very, very hard. That is the reason it
Hmm.
is being said that the Marathas people, they were very sturdy. They were they had a capacity to work very, very hard, and
Hard.
they can survive in the very difficult situation. It is stated about Bajirao Peshwa that whenever he used to march with his cavalry, he don't have to stop and take rest. you know he can just go on marching, and he used to pluck the corn from the cornfield and eat while riding. The Maratha soldiers, they were capable of taking a nap on when the horse was running. That is the reason they could march very swiftly, because they were brought up in a hardship. If a person who is brought up in luxury, it is very difficult for him to put up with that kind of that kind of hardship. For example, now it is very difficult for me to run maybe 5 kilometers. But I remember when I was in Air Force, I used to run cross country. I don't look like a runner now because of all my bulgy body. But the way Air Force has trained me, in a day we used to run 15 kilometers. It's not only me, all the people who are undergoing training. So the circumstances, situation in which you are brought up, it influences your character, and it is said that the geographical region plays a very important role in building your character. It is said about the Rajputs as well. The Rajputs who are believed to be originated from Rajasthan, which is a desert terrain, and it have a very less fertile region, and the surviving and in the desert terrain where there is a scarcity of water, very less fertile land, it is a very tough task, and that toughness to fight against the nature becomes a part of your character, and that is how the Marathas, they could put up with hardship, they could fight a very long drawn war, they could go on a long march without taking rest, and that character has finally contributed to the growth of Maratha as an important soldier force and then as an important political power. Have you understood this character relationship between character and religion?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
sir.
Well, okay. Now, next important reason how this geographical terrain had contributed to the growth of Marathas is that, even though Yadava's empire was defeated by Delhi Sultanate and they became extinct, and the rule of Sultanate have started in Maharashtra. First, it was Bahamani, and then the Bahamani broke into the six small kingdom, and Maharashtra was generally occupied by Nizam Shah of Ahmednagar and Bijapur. That is, uh, Bijapur was Nizam Shah of Ahmednagar and what was the Adil Shah of Bijapur. Now, though these people had a kind of control over the Maharashtrian territory, but the imperial army, this army of Sultan, could never effectively go into the deeper where there is a mountainous terrain having a very thick forest. So what they have to do is they have to take the help of the local Maratha chief to rule. So as it is very difficult to march the huge army, their control over this Maharashtrian region was always a precarious control. It was not a very effective control. And this Maratha chief, as they were the virtual ruler, they used to pay annual taxes to the Sultan. And then, they used to rule almost like a independent chief. So that has kept the spirit of independence alive. Are you understanding this point?
Yes, sir.
For example, in case of northern India, sir, Delhi, Agra, and UP and Bihar, that is a very plain area. And in case if somebody revolts or try to be independent ruler, uh, after the rainy season is over, it is not very difficult for the Sultan from Delhi to march with a huge army, even go as far as up to Bengal and stamp out the rebellion, give very heavy punishment to the rebellion. But that was very difficult to do in the region like Maharashtra. The rebel will take shelter into the hilly region. A rebel will take shelter into the forest, and the Sultan is left with no option but to have a kind of compromise. He cannot just go on waging war after war, and he need to have some compromise, and that is how that spirit of independence have survived in the Maharashtra. And when they found a very favorable situation, we find that it is being manifested in the formation of the Maratha kingdom. Have you understood this next topic? Next point. It is difficult
Yes, sir.
to march huge army because of the mountain, because of the thick forest cover in the Western Ghat. And about fort, we already had discussion in the last topic as well as in the beginning that by constructing fort on the inaccessible hill, people of Maharashtra could fight a very long drawn war against the invading army, and that is what Marathas have done when Aurangzeb has invaded the Maharashtra with a huge army. You know what they will do is they will fight a very long drawn war by staying at the fort, tire out the Mughal. The Mughals will lose out lot of money. They will lose out lot of people, and finally the Marathas will surrender that fort. Say, okay, we have defeated. Surrender the fort, and when you surrender, you have a certain agreement that you will allow the people to go. You will leave the people, and they will hand over the fort, and then go to another fort, and in another fort then the Mughal will attack that another fort. They will keep on fighting for a very long period, and that was resulting in a lot of losses to Mughal, and that is how the Mughal army finally tired out. Apart from other factor, this long drawn siege warfare where the Marathas used to fight a very long drawn war, effectively defend their territory for a very longer period, tire out the Mughal, and then finally surrender the fort. So this fort had played a very important role in giving strength to the Maratha kingdom. Then Chhatrapati Shivaji and his Maratha follower, they slowly they became very effective fighter in the guerrilla warfare. You understand the meaning of guerrilla warfare?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
Yes, sir.
What is
Sir,
that?
attack from nowhere when they have no clue. It's an form of ambush,
Um,
and they attack and then they flee.
right, right.
So the other party does not get to retaliate.
Yeah, yeah, very right. You know, and the Maharashtrian people, they slowly became very effective user of the mountainous terrain. They will suddenly attack the Mughal army, or they will suddenly attack the invading army, and before the Mughal army or the invading army can rally around, pull up themselves together and strike back, they will just vanish. And as they were aware of the path and subways in this mountainous region, they could very effectively use this guerrilla warfare. The guerrilla warfare was also very effectively used by Maharana Pratap to fight against the huge Mughal army with his small army of Rajputs, and it was further, further improved upon by the Marathas, and they were known for their guerrilla warfare. Swiftness of the movement is one of the important factor in this guerrilla warfare. And over a period of time, what happened is this Mughal army, though they were having a more equipment, they were more in strength. They become a bit lethargic. It was a very lethargic movement, and the Marathas took advantage of that. They will suddenly attack, and then they will suddenly vanish. Spirit of independence, I have already told you, as the control of the central authority was never effectively put into place. The Marathas always had a kind of a spirit of independence. Well, and the rivers in Maharashtra, they are not perennial; they are seasonal river. You understand the meaning of the perennial and seasonal?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anybody who doesn't understand, tell me. I'll explain. What is the meaning of perennial?
The river flows throughout the year
Yeah, very right.
without depending on the rainwater only.
Very right. So the rivers in Maharashtra, most of them are seasonal river. They are not perennial river. And in the case of the seasonal river, what happens is suddenly there will be flood. For example, if the rain are not taking place in your region, but the rains are taking place at some other place from where the river is flowing, suddenly you will not be aware, and that has happened in case of Aurangzeb's camp at few places. Because the river bed is a very suitable place for to lay the camp, because it will be considerably plain. You have a water nearby, so your men and your animals can have accessible. They can have water. So the Mughal have put the camp on the river bed, and suddenly there will be flood, and the Mughal used to lose a lot of men, and they used to lose a lot of equipment. So this sudden flooding of river had also became one of the important reason that how Marathas had effectively exploited to their own advantage. Well, this is about geographical. हाँ
Sir, recently it happened in Vidarbha too.
हाँ हाँ
सर 2 महीने पहले जब बहुत बारिश हुई थी ना, वी गॉट न्यूज पे आया था कि one of the dry streams in Vidarbha, it suddenly started flooding
yes
there.
yes yes yes, that is your point. Now you also see that there was a lot of flooding in Jaipur, because
Yes,
what,
sir.
what happened is those region like Rajasthan and all, they that was a region which used to experience a very less rainfall, and that is the reason those people were not prepared for it. The way they laid down the town and cities, they were not prepared for the huge flood. But as the rain came suddenly, on a larger scale, they were at losing end of what is to be done. So that is the reason it resulted in flood. And now, next important factor, which is a geographical and political both, which I'll explain this to you now. And this is there in your paper state in ancient and medieval period as well. See, what happened is Delhi, Agra, and northern India is considerably quite close to the region like Afghanistan, Arab, and Persia. So these Arab, Afghanistan, Persia, Turkey, this used to be the main recruiting ground for the Delhi Sultanate, for their soldiers, for their commander, for their officials. That is the reason we see that the nature of the Delhi Sultanate and was by and large it was foreign in nature. The nobility was mostly coming from this region. Either they came or their ancestors came. The people of Indian origin, very few of them, even if they convert to Islam, very few of them could get place into the nobility, because these people who came from outside, they are trusted more by these kings, because they themselves came out from outside, and the people who came from outside will remain loyal, they will be under obligation, that kind of feeling they have. And that has developed a kind of different pressure group. And same thing happened when the sultanate was established in southern part of India under the Bahamani Sultanate. There were two prominent groups, Deccani and Pardesi, the people who came from outside like Irani, Turani, Turk, Arab, and Deccanis were the people of south who were converted to Islam, and they also form a part of nobility. But these Deccanis or the indigenous native, they did not had any important place in the northern India, in Delhi, but they had some place into the Deccan Sultanate. Now, can you guess what could be the reason that the Indian Muslims could not get a very important place in the politics of Delhi, but they could form an important place in the politics of the Deccan Sultanate?
Because the indigenous people were better aware of the situations in the like local regions, and they could guide better in terms of preparation of the army, and because they knew the region better.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? See, the another factor that contributed to this rise of the indigenous people is that this Deccani Sultanate were far away from the main recruiting ground of the Delhi Sultanate, that is Central Asia. It was far away from Turkey, Persia, Arab. And it is very difficult for the people to come all the way, let us say, from Persia, cross the whole of North India, and then seek employment in the Deccan. Though large number of them did came, but still their number was not adequate to run the whole administration and to fight the war. So this Deccani Sultanate has to take the help of the local people. Now, among the local people, what happened is there were number of people who were converted to Islam, but then in course of time they started taking help of the Hindu people as well. And among the Hindus, it was Marathas, because they were very sturdy, they were brought up in a kind of mountainous, difficult terrain, and they proved themselves to be an effective soldier. So the Marathas started getting an important place in this Deccani Sultanate, first under Bahamani, and then later on under the different sultanate that came out on the ruins of the Bahamani Sultanate. It could be Adil Shahi, it could be Nizam Shahi, it could be Barid Shahi, it could be Qutub Shahi as well. Qutub Shah, Hyderabad, Bhaganagar, it was quite away from Maharashtra. But under the administration of the Qutub Shah, also there were significant Maharashtrian people who were working there. Now, that is the reason these Marathas had got an important place, because in this Deccani Sultanate, they were far away from the main recruiting ground of the people, main recruiting ground from which the significant nobility and soldier were recruited by the Delhi Sultanate. And as the Marathas, they got placed into this Deccani Sultanate, they were effectively trained in fighting. They were effectively trained slowly in running the administration, and that is the reason number of Maratha families, they rise up. They slowly, gradually rose up. Like we have Jadhav family, the father-in-law of Shahaji. His daughter Jizabai was married to Shahaji, Lakhoji Jadhav. We have Bhosle family. Shahaji rose to the very high position. More were the ruler of Zawadi, and Shivaji eliminated them. Ghorpade, Santaji Ghorpade was one of the important person who fought against the Mughal. And before that, there was Bachi Ghorpade, who had enmity with Bhosle family. Ghorpade and Bhosle family, they are related. But you see, this Maratha family is gradually took advantage of the situation. They got place and they proved themselves capable fighter, capable administrator, capable commander, and they rose quite high in the hierarchy. Like there is a very important battle of Bhatwadi, which was fought in 1624, in which the Nizam Shahi noble called Malik Ambar, with the help of Shahaji, Shivaji's father, defeated the combined army of Adil Shah and Mughal. Adil Shah of Bijapur and the Mughal army, they combinedly fought against the Nizam Shahi of Ahmednagar. And Malik Ambar and Shahaji, with the help of the guerrilla tactics, with the help of the Marathas, with the help of the local terrain, fought against very huge army and effectively defeated them. All right. So this is how the Marathas have slowly got place in the administration, became a soldier, and they also Marathas also had an inspiration because very close to their region there were two empire which were very effectively ruled by the local people. Yadava kingdom was there in Maharashtra itself. Its capital was Devgiri, and it was destroyed by uh, Alauddin Khilji. But nevertheless, that memory that 100 years back, 200 years back, 300 years back, our ancestor has built a huge empire and ruled effectively. That legacy, that memory, it continued to inspire the Marathas. That if our ancestors could do it 200 years back, why we should be, remaining as a kind of under the foundation of the Sultanate, who are foreign in nature, who came from outside. They are not only giving place to the people who are coming from outside, they are also prosecuting us. Many of them are prosecuting us because of our religious belief. So why not to have our own kingdom? At the same time, Vijayanagara Empire, which became extinct in 1565 in the Battle of Rakshatagadi. So that memories of Vijayanagara was also quite fresh in the memory. See, the collective memory of the population, it goes on working. For example, I have never seen the period of the British, but somehow whenever people talk about, let us say, fight of Mahatma Gandhi or Subhash Chandra Bose, somehow I feel that it is a very recent thing that has happened. Do you also feel the same?
Yes, sir.
We do feel it, right? Though you were born in independent India, but it is always there in the memory of the people, and that memory, for example, I have certain memories, so I am transferring it to you, all right? And you may transfer it to the next generation. So that is the reason we carry the past in our memory. The past is always alive in your memory, and that is the reason this legacy of Yadavas of Devgiri and the Vijayanagara, that memory always remains somehow alive in the mind of the Maharashtrian people. And then they thought that why not to have a kingdom, why not to have our own our own rule where we can be free, not will not be persecuted, we will get place in politics, we will be free to practice our religion. So these two important reasons we have discussed, geographical and political. In next class we will talk about the religious reason behind the rise of the Marathas, and this religious reason behind the rise of the Maratha gets overlap with your next subtopic also, that is Maharashtra Dharma. Maharashtra Dharma and the religious work, it have a tendency to overlap. Of course, I will be talking, we will be discussing this religious reason, and then later on we will be also talking about Maharashtra Dharma separately. Because once, if you get questions separately on Maharashtra Dharma, you should be knowing how to write your answers. Now, so far, is there any doubt in these causes of the rise of the Marathas? Two important reasons, that is
Sir, I
geographical
have one
and political.
confusion.
Yeah, Minal, tell me.
Sir, guerrilla warfare was like attack and then they flee.
Yes.
So
It-
in case,
हाँ,
the if the chief of other army will not died,
will
तो
not.
फिर ये अगर वो जो दूसरे आर्मी के जो लोग आर्मी के जो चीफ है वो अगर मरते नहीं है
हाँ,
तो it will directly create a confusion who is the winner or not.
हाँ, देखिए गुरिल्ला वॉरफेयर जब होता है ना, तो जो गुरिल्ला अटैक करता है उसका एक इम्पोर्टेंट ये होता है कि सामने वाले आर्मी को वीक कर दे, है ना? इट इज नॉट अ फ्रंटल अटैक, सामने आमने सामने की आर पार की लड़ाई नहीं है, कौन हारा और कौन जीता ये उसमें नहीं डिसाइड होना है। आपको धीरे धीरे, क्योंकि जनरली गुरिल्ला वॉरफेयर वो लोग करते हैं जिनकी स्ट्रेंथ कंसिडरेबली कम होती है, और वो लोग करते हैं जिनके घर पे अटैक किया जाता है, मतलब जिनके एरिया में अटैक किया जाता है। महाराष्ट्रियन पीपल हैज फॉट गुरिल्ला वॉरफेयर बिकॉज मुगल हैव अटैक देयर टेरिटरी। आसाम में भी आसामीज लोगों ने गुरिल्ला वॉरफेयर किया व्हेन मुगल इन्वेडेड देयर आर्मी। तो उसमें फ्रंटल, अगर मान लीजिए मराठा आर्मी एकदम फ्रंटली सामने सामने आ जाती तो मराठा आर्मी की तो हार निश्चित थी, क्योंकि उनके पास में स्ट्रेंथ बहुत कम थी। ऑलराइट, तो उसमें मीनल आपका पॉइंट क्लियर हो गया क्या, या कोई डाउट है बताइए?
Yes, sir. Yes,
है ना?
sir.
तो गुरिल्ला वॉरफेयर का एम यही होता था कि इट इज अ वेरी लॉन्ग ड्रॉन स्ट्रेटेजी, इट इज अ वेरी लॉन्ग ड्रॉन टैक्टिक, जिसमें ये था कि आप सामने वाले के आर्मी को वीक करते जाए ताकि वो फाइनली से he will lose the moral and go away, like it happened with Mughal in Pakistan. It happened with Mughal in Assam also. They fought for a very long period. Large number of their soldiers got killed. Large number of Marathas were also killed. But then they thought that it is better to fight a guerrilla warfare, क्योंकि front to front war में तो हम नहीं पाएंगे, ठीक है ना?
So it was shown in Tanhaji also, I guess.
Yes. Very good.
And it was introduced by Babar, I think, sir.
हाँ, देखिए क्या होता है ना, गुरिल्ला वॉरफेयर इज वन ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट बैटल, वन ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट टैक्टिक्स that is used almost all over the system. I will stop this slide so that I can stop sharing here. Yeah, okay, now it's good. Yeah, Babar in the Central Asia, Babar has fought war against Uzbek, the tribe called Uzbek, and they were very effective user of this guerrilla warfare. So they will run away from the battlefield, and if the army chases them, they will suddenly wheel around, or their own soldier will be hiding somewhere, and they will suddenly come out and attack the people. So it is true, guerrilla warfare is used. It is used in Vietnam against USA. It is used by the Mizos against the Indian army, unfortunately. It is used by the Kashmir separatists against the Indian army. So, the guerrilla warfare, guerrilla tactics is always used at different places. All right? Well, anything else?
No, sir, but introduction of guerrilla warfare in India, I think it was by Babar.
Uh,
I
uh,
read it somewhere.
well, guerrilla warfare by Babar. In India, Babar has fought guerrilla warfare. I am not aware of it, because see, in India when he came, he was very well established at Kabul, and then he started attacking India. For example, Panipat, the very famous battle fought by him. It was there is something called pitched battle, Pitched, pitched battle. Pitched battle means both the army come in front of each other and they fight till the time one is defeated. That is called pitch battle. So the very famous battle fought by him there are two battles which are very famous that is fought by him. One is Battle of Panipat, 1526, and next is Battle of Khanwa. Battle of Khanwa. Khanwa is a village near Agra where he fought against Rana Sanga. And that was also pitch battle in which Rana Sanga and Rajputs were defeated. As far as I know or I read, he might have used some guerrilla tactics here and there, but
Yes.
the two important battles that made him emperor of northern India were these two pitched battle that he fought against Ibrahim Lodi and Rana Sanga. All right.
Yes, sir.
In India, there are these two people who are very well known for the guerrilla tactics. That is Rana Pratap first, and then later on Chhatrapati Shivaji. And then, of course, Marathas carry forward the legacy of Shivaji. Anything else? Vishwajit, I can see Shalini joining today, and Praful is there. Swati is also there today. श्वेता, आप लोगों को ज्वाइन करने में कोई दिक्कत तो नहीं हो रही ना किसी को? You can
नो सर, ज्वाइन करने में कोई दिक्कत नहीं हुई।
कोई दिक्कत नहीं हो रही है ना? हाँ, ठीक है, ठीक है। आज आलिया नहीं है? आई कैनॉट सी आलिया।
आज
So
नहीं है।
actually today what happened was while I was trying to join it from Gmail,
हाँ,
so probably the link was wrong or I don't know what was wrong with it. I couldn't join.
अच्छा,
So I had to go on Google and then WebEx and then I had to put on the meeting password and number and then join. So
ओह,
I'm not sure if she encountered the same problem because she also joins from Gmail. So
okay, okay. Gmail or Minal, could you join from Gmail or you have done the same thing?
No, sir. I had Webex in my phone, so I had joined from.
Okay, so directly from Webex, how did you join? I mean, you have to put that meeting ID and all,
मीटिंग
Yes,
नंबर
sir.
एंड पासवर्ड.
meeting number and
Password.
password.
Actually,
Okay,
Yeah, it was easy.
downloaded WebEx. I downloaded WebEx app and click on the link which you have sent on the WhatsApp group. So that's how I directly were able to join in the meeting.
okay. Is it Shalini speaking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. I cannot see you. Okay, okay, Shalini. That's fine. That's fine. So that's fine. In case any difficulty, anybody's just you can ask Alia if there is any problem in joining.
yes, sir, I'll ask her.
If she's having any personal problem, that's a different matter. But if you are having any problem in joining, you can just let me know, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are every now this timing and all is comfortable for you? No, not a problem.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir, it's
Okay.
comfortable.
Okay. Okay then. So shall we stop here for today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Bye then. Have a nice day. Tomorrow we'll meet at some meeting, right? Okay. Bye.
Same
Yes,
to
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Vishwajit,
Thank you.
Vishwajit,
Thank you, sir.
Shalini. Okay. Bye. Stop.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. You can go.